and thank you all for coming.
It's a very emotional journey, this film. It's not just the regular biopic about a movie star. It leaves you very emotional at the end. Did you set out to make this kind of a movie, or was it that you wanted to explore your mentor and your icon and your idol?
I always knew that to tell our story appropriately, I had to tell my story. And the story of many, or most definitely, who have seen their stories being told by people who live outside of their experience. So I know to understand her, we have to put in context of her as human. More than just legend. She is. So I always knew, and I think that's why she chose me.
How did your relationship start and build with her?
The second show that I ever was acting in, I was young. I think I was 21 years old. And I was a guest star on a TV show, and they said, "Oh, you'll be acting with Marlee." And I said, "Oh, wait, what? So we've known each other for a very long time. There's not a lot of deaf people who work in entertainment, and often when you act, you're the only deaf person that's on set. Not the only deaf actor, but just the only deaf person, including the crew, the director, everybody that's on set. So it's a really lonely experience, and you need other people around you. I think Marlee and I recognize, the kindred spirit in one another. But did I ever think that, Marlee would believe in me enough to ask me to direct the film about her life? No.
There's something interesting that you see in the film. When you start off, it does seem like she's more the maternal character, and there's a moment in the film where she's getting her makeup done, and you're standing behind, watching her, making sure that she looks appropriate and good. And it's almost like the roles reverse, like when a child of a parent, when that role reversal happens, and the child becomes the parent role, and then the parent becomes the child role. It almost seemed like that was happening in your relationship. Is that something that's accurate, or?
Definitely. I think the big theme in that film is being a woman, being a mother, intergenerational friendships. Seeing Marlee appear on so many interviews, it was traumatizing in my mind to see the questions that were asked of her. You could see it in her eyes, and she's just taken aback and just feeling not right about that thing. And I'm wondering, is that how I should perceive myself? And I could see that in Marlee's eyes. And as a young woman, I'm like, no, tell her. I wanted to tell her no. Like, I would, I have more of a vocabulary than she does. My daughter has more of a vocabulary than I do, who's sitting in the back over there. That generation, I think as a mother, you always want to do better than what you were given. So I wanted to show Marlee the way that I see her without commenting. And I think that's the beauty of it, intergenerational friendship. You learn from each other. From her experience, from her wisdom, and the perspective that I have now, I'm able to see her lead the path that she's really created by herself. And I was lucky enough to follow in that. But because I had someone to follow, I could step back and see the bigger picture, whereas she was just thrown into the limelight. So that was really, really a gift. Yeah.
Did you discuss how you wanted the tone and how you wanted the emotion to come across? Because you go back and forth with the signing with no sound, and then to the signing, and then back and forth, and it creates this really beautiful rhythm. Did you talk about that pacing and that rhythm?
With Marlee, no. Marlee just said, here, this is my life, take it, I'm not gonna look. But with my editor, with my great team at Actual Films, yes, definitely. I think I've always seen my experience represented as a sad one of loss. And yes, it is challenging because of the system that we have to navigate, but I think deaf people always, are thrilled to just capture joy when we have it. We laugh at ourselves. And so Marlee is a really joyful person. She's a funny person. So I think you have to have both. Life is about both. So I know I wanted to show both. And Marlee said, she's in the film, she says, it's not silent in here, and she points to her head. So even in a silent moment, we wanted to make sure we kept the sound in it. Leave the birds chirping in the background. Leave the natural voice that are included with sign. It's not a silent language. It has sound in it. Silence is full of sound. So we wanted to include that in the film.
And how was her reaction the first time she saw the first cut or the finished product?
It was just us two, and it wasn't even planned this way. But it just, situation happened, circumstantial, and it was just meant to be this way. We sat down and watched the film, then we both broke down. And we just sat there for a long time. And I let her process it. Let her process what she needed to process without any words. And just held her hand.
Yeah. You really feel that weight of the journey of the history of how deaf people have been treated throughout history. And even though I saw the Academy Awards when CODA's winning all those awards, I still had another different experience from watching this film and then seeing those clips again. It was a much heavier emotional experience because of knowing what you see throughout the film and getting to that point. The arc of the storytelling is really brilliant. Can you kind of talk about any process or how you approached that, of how you wanted to tell the story and have these arcs and reaching them?
I always knew I wanted to have a figure eight, so I wanted to loop back and forth and have several figure eights within the film. Because, we all go through cycles, but it's always different every time. And I think sometimes, no offense to anybody, but sound can take over and manipulate how you feel. So if you hear, or see applause, or hear applause, then you feel like, oh, this is great. But if you remove the sound, and you use your eyes, just your eyes, you see a lot more. And I knew to tell her story with truth, we had to make sure we really forced the audience to see the world the way that she is. So I intentionally wanted to show the Oscars twice, both times in the film. The first time was sound, then the second time without sound. Then you see more. You see things differently. And the second time, with CODA, we didn't manipulate the sound as much, but the eyes, we moved that because that's what I looked at and that's what I saw. It's the deaf person needs to speak for the film, speak for our community, speak for our culture, but they didn't get the chance. So I think every deaf person in the world sees it and sees it that way, is watching that and waiting for Marlee to say something. So I think that's why we're all attracted to films, because we want to see things in different ways. So I think to really represent truth, you have to show it in a figure.
Beautiful. Do we have some questions in the audience? Yes? Somebody back there?
Yeah, I was wondering about the part when Marlee was disconnected from the deaf community. I feel like often true advocates are alienated by their whole community when they've touched onto something too deep for the community to accept, or perhaps something complicated for the community to process. I was wondering what your thoughts on her being treated that way were, and how that affected her, and how something like that, I don't know, I feel like it's very universal, that experience for many people, in her being the way she is.
Definitely, and it's not just her. I feel like our society has a huge obsession on being the first. It can be like self-congratulatory, like a pat on the back. We did it, let's move on. But being the first is a very lonely experience. And when you're alone, you're separated from the pack. So you become really easy prey. And it makes me think of like watching Gladiator. I watched Gladiator 2 on the plane. And I feel like it's like that, It's like there's a funny parallel, but you're put into a ring, and then you fight someone else, and you beat them. You beat your community, and it's like, hey, am I one of you now? And it's no. You'll never sit up there. You'll never be one of us. And that's what I feel like the system does to marginalized communities. No, it's like, oh, you're the first. Now the community will fight each other. And if it's like, and if I beat that person who got there first, then I can get what they have. But that's really crumbs. Like, where's the pie? It's up there. So I feel like we really have to stick together as a community and bake our own pie, rather than wait for people to just throw crumbs out.
I just want to say thank you, because I grew up with a deaf sister, and the family experiences that I've never heard another family that sort of shared similar experiences as we had. And the whole point of the world kind of expected her to be more like them. And because I was really close to her, I understood that it was also my job to try to understand her. And so I hadn't seen that in a movie.
Thank you for sharing that. And you're not alone. Like 95% of deaf people are born into hearing families. And that's why I wanted to call the film Not Alone Anymore. Because most deaf people are born alone. And your sister is so lucky to have you.
And she's had a really successful life. She didn't learn how to sign until I moved away to college. But so she learned how to watching a baseball game with her because she can.
That's great. That's great.
That's kind of along with your film. You do, the loneliness in this film is so palatable, it's so strong, and you did such a brilliant way of carrying that through in an authentic and not forced way. Nothing's contrived here. It's about feelings, and you kind of put it out and let the audience experience what they're going to experience. How did you become so comfortable with yourself that you would be okay to just let it happen and not have to control, the filmmaking process of it and the storytelling of it?
I think because, well, in my experience, people tend to that I'm not capable of a lot of things. Like still today, I was flying to a film festival, and the flight attendant, bless her heart, showed me how to buckle my seatbelt like 5 times. And I'm like, oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you buckle it like this. Great. Wait, it's like this? Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Bless your heart. And I know people just don't get it. And I know for people to really understand, you can't tell them. You have to show them. It's, that 1 + 1. And there you go. It's 2. Good. You know math. Good. 2. Yeah. 2. It's 2. Look, read my lips. And if I did that, they'd be like, "Fuck you." So that's why I'm comfortable with trusting my audience. If I lead them to the place, they'll figure it out themselves.
Well, you obviously trust yourself a lot.
I have to.
Ms. Matlin spoke at what university graduation commencement? What year?
That was Marquette. It was her son's graduation. I think that was in 2023, I believe.
I also.
What's your next project?
I have ideas. I'm not sure yet. And it's very hard for someone like me in this business. The system doesn't work for me the same way that it does for other people.
Are you writing?
So, excuse me. I mean, yes, I'm writing. This is my first experience directing. My first experience with the doc. And this time, in the world, in our country, I feel like there are some very important stories that need to be told. So if, I was lucky enough to say, yes, I do have a project, I have what I need to make a project, and it will be another documentary. And it's about what's going on in this country and how it's affecting the deaf community and other communities within the disability experience, or disabled experience.
When you were growing up, I know you come from a Jewish background, I come from an Orthodox Jewish background, and I know that was it your grandparents or your great-grandparents that were survivors from the Holocaust?
Both grandmothers.
And they were both deaf?
Both were deaf, yes.
So do you have any stories from that time period? I mean, I can only imagine being deaf in that period of time and being Jewish in that period of time, the struggles that they had to just even survive. You obviously have survival in your genetics. Do you have any interesting stories about that?
My favorite story is my grandmother's friend. She was not as lucky as my grandmother, and that friend's family did not sign at all. Both of my grandparents, their parents did communicate with them. So my grandmother's friend was at a school for the deaf, a Jewish school for the deaf in Berlin. And I actually just visited it last year. And it happened to be on Holocaust Memorial Day, and that was really special to me. But my grandmother's friend, she stood up, she walked out with my grandmother onto the street, and someone yelled at her in Hebrew, someone yelled at you, "You're a Jew, you dirty Jew." And she looked at my grandmother and said, "What does Jewish mean?" She didn't have those words. She didn't know. She's like, people hate me, and she didn't understand why. So that always hits me hard. There's a cycle through, history repeats itself. And today it's happening again. There's going to be a registry for people who are autistic. And it's happening again. It's just history repeats itself, and it will always repeat unless we really roll up our sleeves and educate ourselves. All humanity, and we are all human. Words, it's great that we have words, but words really divide us. But they can also bring us together too.
I'll take one more question.
I have a question. Marlee Matlin sang to My Life from Billy Joel. Is that one of her favorite songs, and how difficult was it to have them license it for your film?
Oh, let me tell you. So that's her dad's favorite song. And that was the only thing that Marlee said you cannot use in the film. So we happened to be in the car, and the song just came on, and she started signing it. And I was sitting in the back seat, and I'm looking at the monitor, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. And she said, no, you cannot use this. I was like, well, okay, well then, first of all, we never thought we would get it. But then we started thinking about the ending, what the theme music would be. And Marlee said, let's just ask Billy Joel. And I was like, okay. And Billy Joel said, yeah, go ahead. You can use it. And we're like, what? So my editor and I looked at each other and we said, we have to have her sign the song. We just have to do it. So we did that one thing. I gave Marlee a disclaimer. I said, before you watch the movie, I have a surprise for you at the end. But it's just that one thing that you can say, no, take it out. And I will. I'll take the no. Because you did tell me no. So I respect that. But that's the one thing. Everything else, I'm like, I'm sorry, you have to leave it. But that one thing. And she was just like, no, it's great. You're right. So I was like, whew, I love it. So thank you, Billy Joel.
I'm really excited about your future as a director, actually. I just think you really have a feel for it, and it's innate for you. And I can't wait to see where the future takes you. I want to thank you so much for coming, and we're going to get to our award ceremony, so we're going to get this to a close, but I could go on communicating with you forever because there's so much to ask.
Marlee did want me to share a message or a comment from you, from Marlee. Marlee says she's been a homeowner here for 30 years, and Mammoth is literally her second home, and it really breaks her heart that she couldn't be here. So she's here with you in spirit and in your heart. Thank you for coming.
There's always next year.
Thank you.